Hi, I'm Anita Perez, also known as Luminaria's Star, and this is a Metaphysician's Journal. And this is the entry for January 20th, 2015. Today the sun moves into Aquarius, and we also have a new moon at 0 degrees Aquarius at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This forms an exact conjunction with the sun, but things are offset enough so that there will be no eclipse. And on this day in history, in 1841, China ceded Hong Kong to the British during the First Opium War. And in 1869, Elizabeth Cady Stanton became the first woman to testify before U.S. Congress. In 1920, the American Civil Liberties Union was founded. In 1930 was the first radio broadcast of the Lone Ranger on WXYZ in Detroit. In 1945, Franklin D. Roosevelt was sworn in for an unprecedented fourth term as U.S. President. And we have a number of notable birthdays on this day. Federico Fellini was born January 20th, 1920. He was an Italian director and scriptwriter of surrealistic films. In a career spanning almost 50 years, Fellini was nominated for 12 Academy Awards and directed 4 motion pictures that won Oscars in the category of Best Foreign Language Film. In 1926, the actress Patricia Neal was born in Packard, Kentucky. In 1930, Ed Aldrin Jr. was born in Montclair, New Jersey. He's the U.S. Air Force astronaut who flew on the crew of Gemini 12 and Apollo 11. Paranormal investigator and reporter Linda Moulton Howe was born on this day in 1942. And in 1946, David Lynch was born in Missoula, Montana. He's an actor, director, known for his work on Dune and Eraserhead. In 1956, Bill Maher was born in New York City. He's the American comedian and political commentator who is known for his work on Real Time with Bill Maher and Politically Incorrect. On this day in 1888, Huddie William Ledbetter, best known as Leadbelly, was born. He was an American folk and blues musician, notable for his strong vocals, virtuosity on the 12-string guitar, and the songbook of folk standards that he introduced. Though Leadbelly usually played the 12-string guitar, he could also play the piano, the mandolin, harmonica, violin, and the Cajun accordion, also sometimes known as the windjammer. In some of his recordings, such as in one of his versions of the folk ballad John Hardy, he performs on the accordion. In other recordings, he sings while clapping his hands or stomping his foot. Throughout his adult life, he was in and out of prison due to his unpredictable temper, combined with the uncertain times he lived in. In 1915, he was convicted of carrying a pistol and sentenced to time on the Harrison County chain gang. He escaped, finding work in nearby Bowie County under the assumed name of Walter Boyd. In January 1918, he was again imprisoned in Sugar Land, Texas, after killing one of his own relatives in a fight over a woman. In 1925, he was pardoned and released after writing a song to Governor Pat Morris Neff, seeking his freedom. Combined with his good behavior, which included entertaining the guards and fellow prisoners, his appeal to Neff's strong religious beliefs proved sufficient. It was a testament to his persuasive powers, as Neff had run for governor on a pledge not to issue pardons. According to Charles K. Wolfe and Kip Lornell's book, The Life and Legend of Leadbelly, Neff had regularly brought guests to the prison on Sunday picnics to hear Leadbelly perform. In 1930, Leadbelly was again sentenced to he was again sentenced to prison. In 1930, Leadbelly was again sentenced to a prison sentence. In 1930, Leadbelly was again sentenced to prison at Louisiana's Angola prison farm after a summary trial for attempted homicide for stabbing a white man in a fight. He was discovered there 3 years later during a visit by folklorists John Lomax and his son Alan Lomax. Deeply impressed by Leadbelly's powerful voice and extensive repertoire, the Lomaxes recorded him for the Library of Congress. They returned in July 1934, recording hundreds of his songs. On August 1st, Leadbelly was released following a petition that the Lomaxes had taken to Louisiana Governor Oscar K. Allen at his request. It was on the other side of a recording of his signature song, Goodnight, Irene. By the time Leadbelly was released from prison, the United States was deep in the Great Depression, and jobs were very scarce. In September of 1934, in need of regular work in order to avoid having his release canceled, Leadbelly met with John Lomax and asked him to take him on as a driver. For 3 months, he assisted Lomax in his folk song collecting across the southern states. Lomax's son, Alan, was prevented from going along due to his poor health at the time. In December of that year, Leadbelly participated in a group sing at a Modern Language Association meeting at Bryn Mawr College in Pennsylvania, where the senior Lomax had a prior lecturing engagement. On New Year's Day in 1935, the pair arrived in New York City, where Lomax was scheduled to meet with his publisher about a new collection of folk songs. The newspapers were eager to write about the singing convict, and Time magazine made one of its first filmed March of Times newsreels about him. Leadbelly attained fame, but not fortune. The following week, he began recording for the American Record Corporation, but these recordings achieved little commercial success. Of the over 40 songs that he recorded, only 5 were released. ARC insisted on releasing only the blues songs rather than the folk songs, for which he would later become better known. In any case, Leadbelly continued to struggle financially. Like many other performers, what income he made during his lifetime would mostly come from touring, not from record sales. It was during this time that Leadbelly sent for his girlfriend, Martha Promise, to come north from Louisiana to marry him. Afterwards, Lomax and Leadbelly collaborated on a collection called, according to the custom of the era, Negro Folk Songs as Sung by Leadbelly, which was not released until 1936. But in spring of 1935, Leadbelly accompanied John Lomax on a previously scheduled 2-week lecture tour of colleges and universities in the Northeast, culminating at Harvard. John Lomax then decided that he could no longer work with Leadbelly and gave him and Martha money to go back to Louisiana by bus. He gave Martha the money her husband had earned during 3 months of performing, in installments, on the pretext that Leadbelly would drink it all up if given a lump sum. From Louisiana, Leadbelly successfully sued Lomax both for the full amount and also for release from his management contract. The quarrel was very bitter, with hard feelings on both sides. In spite of an agreement to resume their working arrangement, they never collaborated again. Despite a write-up in Life magazine, Leadbelly failed to stir the enthusiasm of Harlem audiences. Instead, he attained success playing at concerts and benefits for an audience mostly consisting of leftist folk music aficionados. He developed his own style of singing and explaining his repertoire in the context of Southern black culture. Curiously, Leadbelly himself was apolitical. If anything, he was a supporter of Wendell Willkie, the centrist Republican candidate for whom he actually wrote a campaign song. In 1939, Leadbelly wound up back in jail for assault after stabbing a man in a fight in Manhattan. Alan Lomax, then 24, took him under his wing and helped him raise money for his legal expenses, dropping out of graduate school to do so. After his release in 1941, and for several years afterward, Leadbelly appeared as a regular on Alan Lomax and Nicholas Ray's groundbreaking CBS radio show, Back Where I Came From, broadcast nationwide. He made the rounds of the New York folk circuit with such notables as Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Woody Guthrie, and Pete Seeger, all fellow performers on the radio show. He recorded a number of folk songs then for the Library of Congress as well during this period. In 1944, he headed out to California where he recorded strong sessions for Capitol Records. Leadbelly was the first American country blues musician to see success in Europe. In 1949, Leadbelly returned to New York, where he then had a regular radio broadcast on station WNYC on Sunday nights. Later in the year, he began a European tour with a trip to France, but he fell ill before its completion and was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. His final concert was at the University of Texas at Austin in a tribute to his former mentor, John A. Lomax, who had died the previous year. Martha also performed at that concert, singing spirituals with her husband. Leadbelly died on December 6, 1949, in New York City, and was buried in the Shiloh Baptist Church Cemetery in Mooringsport in Caddo Parish. He is honored with a statue across from the Caddo Parish Courthouse in Shreveport, Louisiana. There are a number of conflicting accounts about how Leadbelly acquired the nickname, though it was probably while he was in prison. Some claim that his fellow inmates called him Leadbelly as a play on his family name, Ledbetter, and also referring to his physical toughness. It's recounted that during his second prison term, another inmate stabbed him in the neck, leaving him with a fearsome scar he subsequently covered with a bandana. Leadbelly nearly killed his attacker with his own knife. Others say he earned the name after being wounded in the stomach with buckshot. Another theory is that the name refers to his ability to drink vast quantities of moonshine. Whatever its origin, he adopted the nickname as a pseudonym while performing. The topics of Leadbelly's music covered a wide range, including gospel, blues about women, liquor, prison life, and racism, and folk songs about cowboys, prison, work, sailors, cattle herding, and dancing. He wrote a song about the Titanic. He also wrote songs about people in the news, such as Franklin D. Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler, Jean Harlow, the Scottsboro Boys, and Howard Hughes. Leadbelly was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988 in the Early Influence category. His memory lives on, and his music is eternal. And that concludes another entry in A Metaphysician's Journal. I bid you peace.